How's it going, guys? My name is Damani. I am a tech artist, a brand ambassador for Shining 3D, and a 3D scan tech at Aura FX. And today we're going to be talking about cross-polarized 3D scanning with the Einscan Pro HD and reality capture. So first, visible light, specular versus diffuse reflections. So the reflection of light can roughly be categorized into two types of reflection. There's specular reflection and diffuse reflection. Specular reflection is defined as light reflected such that the incident rays are reflected from a surface at a definite angle. Think of a mirror-like surface, which is a perfect specular reflector. In contrast, diffuse reflection is defined as the reflection of light from a surface such that an incident ray is reflected at many angles, rather than just at one angle. So different materials will have different mix and proportions of both diffuse and specular reflection. Some surfaces are highly specular while others are highly diffuse. In computer graphics, we can control these two elements separately. So in CG, the diffuse color is the reflected color of the object, which it shows under pure white light, where incoming light is again reflected in all directions equally. We perceive this as the color of the object itself, rather than a reflection of the light source. This is in contrast to the specular reflection, which is the reflection of the light source. So also know that specular reflections aren't all bad. A lot during this webinar I'm going to be talking about how to remove them, but they really give objects we see shape and form. So here are some examples that I just kind of pulled off of Google Images that speaks to the comparison between specular and diffuse reflection. We'll start with the paper and mirror scene. So you see the one with the mirror on the left and then the paper on the right. The mirror being the specular surface where it reflects not just the light source, but objects in the scene. That's how reflective it is. So that's our specular case. And then on the right, we have our piece of paper, which is very diffuse, very matte. There's really no specular value. It's really all about the diffuse in that one. And then you see the flashlight, which is kind of the in-between, where it has the specular curvature. You see the highlights there, the specular highlights, but it also has the color information, that flat color, the yellow and the black. So typically when you're doing a scan, you'll probably see, like as you do the scan, if you have a color pack, you'll do a scan and you'll see these white streaks through the scan, and that's the specular component of the material that you're scanning. The specularity is bad for scanning. It's bad for color. A lot of cases it's bad for trying to get the geometry. It causes noise. So specularity is a tricky case and it's for scanning in a lot of different ways. So this is kind of, highlighting the difference between specular and diffuse reflection. You'll see the incident light ray, the diffuse rays scattering in different directions, and the specular reflection scattering in that singular one direction. So what is cross-polarization photography and how does it work? So cross-polarization photography is a technique that allows us to control, filter, and remove all specular reflections from our images. This results in an image with a flat color that can be used to create albedo diffuse maps, which is one of the components for PBR materials. Albedo just means no highlight or shadows. And PBR, or physically based rendering, is the industry standard computer graphics framework and methodology that empowers artists to achieve repeatable photorealistic results. Cross-polarization photography is all about the light. The technique works by applying two polarizing filters, one on the light source, which is our linear polarizer, and one on the lens, which is our circular polarizer. The circular polarizer filter is then rotated until it's perpendicular to the linear polarizer film, and the filter's effect is at its peak. So we aim to target and filter these specular reflections or highlights that are the perfect reflections of your photographic light source. Remember, an object is only visible to our eyes when it reflects some light source or is the light source itself. When light is specularly reflected, the polarization is maintained in the reflected light. Therefore, if the incident light is linearly polarized, the reflected light will also be linearly polarized. And when the light is diffusely reflected, the incident light is reflected in various directions or absorbed and re-emitted by the object. Therefore, even if the incident light is linearly polarized, the diffused reflected light is unpolarized. What does that all mean? All right, so here's really the best visual example that I could find for cross-polarization. So it's all about using two filters, right? So we start with the light emitted from our light source. That's our unpolarized light. And then it passes through the linear polarizer, which we put on that light. And so the linear polarizer, if you imagine, there's a bunch of slots on it, essentially. And so it blocks all the light that's not, passing through at the same direction as those slits. So in this example, it's saying vertical, right? So all the slits here are vertical. So the unpolarized light is filtered through, and only the vertical passing light is allowed to pass through, and that's our vertically polarized light. So cool, we've vertically polarized all of our light. Now we want to add a second filter, which is perpendicular to the first filter, right? So the first filter, kind of starts to get all the light passing through to be organized, and then the second filter is perpendicular to the first filter, not allowing all this organized light to pass through, and now there's no more of that polarized light coming through. So here are examples. So this is the effect that we're trying to achieve. This is the whole point of it. The whole magic that we're trying to do here is you see different use cases I organized. So it kind of shows different industries, different people that are pursuing this cross-polarized image effect and what they're using it for. So dentistry. In this case, I didn't research too deep into it, but I can only imagine, these dentists are trying to see our teeth, and look at all these highlights that obscure, the information that they're trying to see. They're trying to see the color. They're trying to see maybe the amount of enamel, right? So the highlights can really obscure that. This is, again, the reflection of the light source. It has nothing to do with the tooth. It's just the light source in the scene, and it ends up being these white splotches all over the teeth. So the cross-polarization allows them, again, to see into the tooth in a way that they couldn't see previously. Another example here with this water droplet. Let's say you're doing some kind of beautiful macro photography, right? And you're trying to shoot these water droplets. Notice how the light source is reflected in the water droplets, and you see these bright white highlights, these bright spots, right? Maybe you don't want those. Maybe you just want that, beautiful refracted color, which is the diffuse reflection. So using cross-polarization, you're able to remove these highlights and just get that color underneath. Here's another example with this Spice Imperial Tea. So with and without the effect. And you see without the effect, you have these really bright, harsh highlights that kind of, in this area, if this was a 3D scan, in this area, you would have no color information, right? You would just have this white value, which has nothing to do with the color underneath. So the cross-polarization really allows us to get this flat color information, which really speaks to the color of the object. And then again, here's another example. Maybe you're doing product photography, and you're trying to shoot these bottles, and these light sources are in all the reflections in the glasses, and the ice, and the bottles, and even the case in the back has some specularity to it. So you want to remove that. So that's what cross-polarization is all about. It's to remove these specular highlights. So what tools do I need to create cross-polarized images? So you need a camera, preferably a DSLR, and then you need a light source, and I'm going to recommend the Godox Wistro AR400, which is a very powerful 400 watt ring flash, and you need a trigger for it as well. There's a cable trigger, or you can use a wireless trigger, which is what I have. And then you need your polarizing filters, right? So you need the linear polarizer, which is the sheet that you put in front of your light source. And then you need the circular polarizer, which is the filter you put on your lens. And then ultimately they end up being perpendicular to each other. Okay. And then optional tools. I'm going to recommend that you consider getting a remote control motorized turntable. That's what I use for my photogrammetry. It's very useful in that case. And then for color calibration, if color is very important to you, you don't want to just get the flat color value. You also want to make sure that the colors are accurate. Then that's what the color X-Rite color checker is able to provide you with. It's that color calibrated tool. So you shoot that in the scene under the lighting conditions, and then you're able to calibrate the color information that you capture. And then so for software that I'm going to be using, we're going to be using reality capture, which is for photogrammetry. We're actually going to be doing a complete photogrammetry scan that is cross-polarized. And then Cloud Compare or Geomagic Essentials, those are software for aligning our scan data. So we're going to align our photogrammetry scan to our Pro HD structured light scan. And so Cloud Compare is free and open source. And then if you're a Shine 3D customer, you may be familiar with Geomagic Essentials, which is paid for a license, but it can operate in the same way as Cloud Compare for this workflow. And then optional, I'm going to say optional is the color calibration. So Darktable is what I use, or Lightroom, which is a paid subscription tool. Okay, so we are on to the demonstration. Give me a moment, I'll prepare and set up, and we can dive into how I actually do this workflow. Okay, so this is my photogrammetry setup. You can see I'm using a DSLR, that's a Canon 5D Mark II. And then I have the ring flash, the Godox AR400 mounted to the front. And then in front of that, there's the linear polarizer filter. It's all being triggered by that trigger mounted to the hot shoe. I'm using a ComZim motorized turntable. I love this turntable. Basically, it has a button that you press for 32 stops. So it does a full 360 rotation and then pauses 32 times throughout that rotation. And then with each pause, I just trigger the camera using that trigger in my right hand. So that's a Canon intervalometer trigger. So it's got a button on that lets me trigger the camera. And then very important, notice all the black, so I'm shooting on a black turntable. I have the black backdrop. This is called the void method. So basically it allows me to take all these photographs in different orientations, and then it tricks reality capture into thinking that I'm just moving the camera around the shoe rather than just changing orientations. And so I get these really nice even rings of coverage all the way around the shoe. So you'll see with both processes I do 3 orientations. So I do one with the shoe straight up, then I put it on its right side, then I put it on its left side, and I get full coverage of every angle. So yeah, this is really the setup. Another tip I can give you: try to increase your shutter speed without firing the flash yet. Increase your shutter speed until you can create a completely black exposure. That's how you can make sure that no ambient light is really being registered. And then introduce the powerful flash. So the flash I'm shooting at a quarter power. The f-stop I have is f11. I'm shooting 1/160th of a second, and my ISO is set to 100. So you want to reduce ISO. Make sure that you're not getting any grain in your images. Make sure your images are sharp and in focus. And you can see I'm also using a gray card and then a color calibration chart. So those are great tools to make sure that your images are all color accurate and that your white balance is correct. And I'm shooting all in RAW too, so I'm able to process these images in post using Darktable. So this is really my photogrammetry setup. And so this is the structured light scan. So if you're familiar with the Pro HD and Shine 3D, this should be familiar to you. I don't really have much to say about this capture. I'm using the color pack, so you can see there is color information I'm capturing. And that's really just for reference, especially later when we want to do the alignment between the two models. The color information can be useful. But yeah, I just do 3 orientations exactly like I do the photogrammetry. So you'll see me do this upright capture orientation, then I put it on the side, then I put it on the other side. And I think I did about, even the same amount of frames. I think I did like 25 frames. I can't really totally see what it says there, but yeah, you just want to get a good amount of coverage between those captures. So I just put it on the side, then I started again. Doing another capture. And again, this scan is for the geometry, so we're less concerned with color. The color checker is still up there, but I'm not using it. This is all about capturing good geometry, so you want to make sure you have that good operational distance. The fixed scan doesn't really have a resolution slider, but you're just trying to get as much geometry, as much detail as possible. And in the end, you see that the high res I export at 2.5 million polygons. Oh, another tricky part about this whole scenario is between these scans, you really don't want to change the subject. You don't want it to deform. So before I started, I was careful to make sure that the laces were tucked back and tucked inside, and yeah, I'm being really careful to, when I touch the shoe, I only touch it from the base, where it's tougher, where it's not going to change shape on me. And then in the end, we're aligning these 2 scans together. So you want accuracy there. You want the shape to be consistent. So these deformable objects can be tricky, and that is something that I'm looking to improve in the process. How to make it easier to do 2 separate scans without the subject changing. I think speed is an element in it, where you want to be quick between the scans. You don't want to allow too much time for it to change shape, and you want to be careful how you touch it. So that's why I'm using 2 turntables, have them right next to each other, and then when I'm ready to make a switch, I just slide one over, gently move the object, and start the next scan. So that's really my whole workflow using the Einscan Pro HD for the high resolution geometry capture. Alright, so you saw how I did the structured light capture, and it was done in 3 positions. So we have 3 scans that we have here in the project view. So really the only thing I have to do is remove these markers, and then we will run the mesh algorithm, and from there we will have the final composite model. So real quick, I'm going to time lapse this, and you'll just watch me remove all of these markers. Okay, so now I will just quickly go through the Darktable workflow. Darktable is a free and open source software for processing photos that are shot in RAW format. So basically, the RAW format is the digital negative, and then we use Darktable to process the images, and then we'll create the photos that we'll pre-process them in Darktable and then import them into Reality Capture to actually generate our photogrammetry model. So the workflow in Darktable is pretty straightforward. First, you want to go to Add to Library, and then I have this folder here with all of the raw files that we shot. So I can just click Add to Library, and then in come all of the photos that we shot there. So I'm scrolling to the images that have the chart in it. We'll use these for starting the calibration. But I'm sorry, actually, first thing you want to do in Darktable is make sure that you're using the scene referred workflow. So we can come to the settings here, and then we can go, let's see, should be under, Okay, under processing, we make sure that this is set to scene referred. Is there anything else? You can also turn off auto apply sharpen. Okay, so those two settings can be done in the settings. Close out of there, and then when you double click an image, it'll bring you into the darkroom, and then you can click this drop down here, and also make sure that this is set to scene referred. If it will come down for you, it's not coming down for me right now. I've clicked it too many times. There we go. Scene referred. So make sure this is set to scene referred. And then essentially you want to make sure almost everything is off in here. Turn off sharpen, turn off filmic RGB. The rest of these should be on. We'll come to white balance, and so if you shot a gray card like I did, you can use that as reference. So you can change it to from image area, and it'll let you draw a square here, and that sets the white balance. And then I'll show you how to copy settings. So if you go back to the light table, you have this selective copy. You can click select none, and then I'm just going to copy the white balance that we just did. So hit OK. And then there's a bunch of images here, so I'm just going to hit Control A to select all, and then I will paste that white balance setting to all the images, and you'll see it says working. And then it corrects the white balance for all of the images. And so we're going to do the same for the color checker here. So I'll double click in to go to the darkroom, and then here's a search bar, so you can type in, I'll do color, and then we're looking for color calibration, which is this one here. So you can turn this on, and then we're looking to calibrate with a color checker. So this is why I shot with the color checker. You have 4 dots in the corners here, and so basically these dots are supposed to line up with the corners of your color checker. So 1, this corner is covered a little bit. 2, grab this one. 3 and 4, and then you just want to adjust them, trying to get the center of each square. Okay, and then make sure that you have it set to the right chart. I just have the X right color checker. It's probably post 2014. And then I want to come down here and click recompute profile. It gives you a quality report, and then it even gives you some values for exposure and black offset compensation. I think it's telling you that these are the values it wants you to use. So I'm going to hit accept, and then I'm going to close this. I'll try to remember plus 1.55 exposure value. So then I will come to, let's see here, close out a color. We're looking for, where's this? Exposure. Okay. And so it says to go up 1.55. So we're trying to crank this 1.55. Okay. So this is our exposure. And then now I'm going to go back to the light table for this image, and I'm just going to hit copy. So I'm just going to copy the whole history stack, and then I'm going to Control A, select all my images, and then hit paste. And again, that pastes the changes we made to this image across all of the images in the stack, so that they all have the same value. So that's how we did the exposure. We made sure that we turned off filmic, Let's double check one of these to make sure that filmic is off. Filmic is still on. Okay, so then you want to turn off filmic, and then go to light table, hit Control A. I'm sorry, select the copy, select none, and then filmic being off, we'll copy, and Control A, and paste it. So that should turn off filmic for all of these. Okay, so filmic is off. We did the color calibration, we did our white balance, and we did our exposure. Also, you want to make sure, basically you're just going through these tabs and making sure that nothing that would affect the colors being linear. You know, we're not doing anything that's stylized. We're not trying to mimic any film stock or do anything creative. We're really trying to get what's physically possible with the colors. So that's really the goal with this whole workflow. After that's all done, you can come out to the light table, hit Control A. I'm going to deselect these images because I don't want to export these, but everything else is the information for our photogrammetry. In storage options, you can select the directory where you want it to write to. So I have a folder already set here. So processed. So raw was the unprocessed. Processed is the destination where I want to put the processed images. I just still use JPEG, 8-bit JPEGs, and yeah, that's about it. So now we can hit export, and we're writing all of our images, and then we'll jump into reality capture to create the photogrammetry model. Okay, so now we are in reality capture. I'm going to import our images. To do that, you can come over to workflow, and then in inputs, and then these are all of the processed images that we just processed in Darktable. So I'm just going to window select all of them and hit open. So here it says 98 images. We come to the alignment tab and we hit this button. So the alignment process actually took out the recording, and it finished, and you'll see here 98 out of 98 of my cameras aligned, which is really great. It's not always that all the images will align. You just want to go, get as many images as possible. You're trying to get complete coverage of your subject. So in the view here, I'm just increasing the scale so you can see all of the individual cameras that aligned. There's also this bounding box. So this is the region of computation. You might want to extend it a bit, but essentially all that's within this area will be computed for the reconstruction. So once you're all happy with that, you can come to the mesh model tab, and then you want to hit this high detail button, and that will run the high detail reconstruction. So I'm going to pause the video, and then we will run the reconstruction. So the reconstruction ran. One thing I forgot to mention is that process is computationally intensive and can take a bit. So for me, I have a pretty strong PC here, and it took the computer about 30 minutes to process. But once that's done, you have here the photogrammetry model. So the next thing you want to do, you want to decimate it. So you can come to this tree here, click your model, and then you want to go to tools, and you want to open the simplify tool, and you want to decimate it. Right now it's saying it's 20.6 million triangles. This is not the model that we're using for the geometry, so you want to make sure that it's light enough that you can kind of deal with it. So it's defaults to 1.2 million, and that's fine for me. So I'm gonna hit simplify, and then again we'll come back just in case this kicks off the video. So now that is complete. We did the simplify, the decimation. So now we're at 1.2 million triangles. So the final thing that we have to do is just to project the texture. So you want to come over to the mesh model menu again, and then just hit this texture button. So I'll pause again and we'll let that run. Okay, so that's complete. So we did the cross-polarized photography. This is what all the work was for. So now we have our cross-polarized textures. So now the final stage is to marry these two models, right? So we have the reality capture structured light model, but we also have this, we have the reality capture photogrammetry model, but we also have the structured light model with the fine geometry from Shine 3D. So now we want to marry these two, and so I'll show you how to do that. There's two possible softwares. You can either use Cloud Compare, which is what I'll demo because it's the free and open source option, but I know that some users have access to Geomagic Essentials. So if you have Geomagic, I would recommend using Geomagic since you already have it, and it's able to perform some of the same operations. So let's jump into Cloud Compare. Okay, so now we've jumped into Cloud Compare, and I'm going to open both models, our structured light model and our photogrammetry model. So you can come to this open menu, and then here I have my structured light model. Let that open. So this is our structured light model, and now we're going to open the photogrammetry model. So you notice also how I've named these, right? So you see PG scan is my photogrammetry model, SL scan is my structured light model. I would recommend you use a similar naming convention so that you don't mix up which model is which. Okay, so they're both in here. Another issue you're going to see is that our structured light model is the right size. Our photogrammetry model is very small. That is because I did not show you the workflow to use a scale bar, which is the tool that you use with photogrammetry to kind of set the proper scale. We didn't do that for this. That's something that I think should be implemented into this workflow in the future, but it's a lot of steps, and so just know that through this workflow we're going to destroy our scale deliberately. In the end, you could return the scale to the final model if that's of real importance to you, but for me it's not that big of a deal. So what we're going to do is, okay, so order of operations is also very important with this. So I'll try to explain. What we're doing is we're aligning these two models so that we can bring the structured light model into reality capture and reproject the textures. So that means that the structured light model has to be aligned to the photogrammetry model. So this to this. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink our structured light model so that it's around the same scale as the photogrammetry model. So let's see here. We can come to Edit, Multiply and Scale. And we're going to be applying a transformation. So make sure you're on the structured light model, Edit, Multiply / Scale, and then let's see here. It says same scale for all dimensions, and let's start with 0.25, so a quarter of the size. So closer, but still not there. So let's do it again. Multiply and scale. We'll do a quarter again. And so now they're closer in size. They don't have to be exact. And so now we're going to do some transformations. So come to edit, translate, rotate. And so I'm adjusting, and remember this is all with the structured light model. We're not going to touch the photogrammetry model at all, because this is where we're trying to go to. So in fact, I will rotate it so that this, I'm rotating the whole scene now, using my scroll wheel to zoom out. I'm going to rotate it so that the shoe is kind of on its side like that. That's how I like to look at it. And then so we're going to zoom out. And I'm going to try to get the other shoe to match this. So I'm selecting the structured light model, hit edit, translate, rotate. And so we're going to bring it here, and then we're going to rotate it so that it matches. And I want these to be right next to each other. And I see this is a bit smaller now, so I'm going to try to make it a bit bigger in a second. So tools, I'm sorry, edit, multiply scale, and we'll do 1.15. Okay. So just trying to get these two to be around the same size. It doesn't have to be perfect. But remember, so this is our structured light model, and this is our photogrammetry model. So you can start to see, some of the difference in the textures here. We're not dissing the Einscan texture. It's a great reference texture, but you can see issues here, like how it's not properly mapped. And if I turned off the texture on the photogrammetry model, you'd see a lot of the noise that you get from photogrammetry. I mean, even without turning it off, you can see here all this bumpiness in the model that you won't see in the structured light model. So both technologies, both approaches have their pros and cons, and we're just looking to marry, the best of both. Okay. So now that we got these kind of relatively next to each other, this is really how you want them aligned. Now we can do the alignment. So you select both models, and you want to go to, let's see here, tools, registration, align point picking. And so this is important. Now it's saying select aligned entities. So it's the structured light model that will be aligned. The photogrammetry model we want to stay put. And so the way that it breaks it down here is red is the aligned entity, our structured light model, and yellow is our reference. So when I click on the photogrammetry model, it populates points here. When I click on the structured light model, it populates points up here. Okay, and we can hit these X's and it will remove the pairs. So now we're just picking pairs, and that's just looking at each model and saying this point here is the same as this point over here. And you want to do that a few times, and you want to go in different areas all around the shoe so that you're evaluating, not all one area is the idea. Also, you want to make sure this adjust scale is ticked. We roughly adjusted the scale, but this will be more precise. It'll be based on all the points that we've picked and how they relate to each other. So I like to use these lace holes as points. So I'm just zooming in here. I try to get close. The closer you get, it allows you to be more precise in your point picking. So I have 0, I have 1. And I'm gonna do, let's do, like 5. You don't have to go crazy, but let's pick 5 pairs. And again, you're picking areas that are different regions of the shoe. These corners are a great place. So I might use the corner here. And you know, the texture is helping for seeing, right? The texture gives us visual information, but we could also turn the textures off, because textures can be misaligned, whereas I feel as though the geometry, even though the photogrammetry geometry is more noisy, you still see these definite peaks and pronounced features that can help with the point picking. So that's our 3 and 4. So here, I'll click 3 and 4. So yeah, just trying to go to different areas around the shoe, and we align them like this so it's easy to kind of compare and contrast. I'm trying to go now to the back side, so I'm going to zoom out and then I'm going to turn it so I can see the back. Zoom out, turn it. So I like the top of the D here. Top of the D, and we can do the U, so the D and the U. D and the U. Okay. So, you know, I said 5, we did 6 pairs. Adjust scale. When you're ready, you hit align. And so that aligned the 2. And so that is our rough alignment. So now our structured light model is aligned to the photogrammetry model. They're in the same space. But now I want to select 2 and then do the fine registration. I'm sorry, so make sure you select the scans, not the folders. And then again, it's assigning these roles. So make sure that the reference is the photogrammetry scan PG and the aligned is the structured light. You can hit adjust scale, and I like to leave all this, you know, so all default is fine. And then when it's all set, hit OK. And this is the fine registration. Okay, so now it's registered. So I'm going to turn off the photogrammetry scan, and then I'm going to see how it now says SL scan registered. So you can select it, hit File, hit Save, and then you want to write it out, choose the file format, and then I'm going to go to where I had those other structured light scan, and then I'll create a new folder and I'll call this scan aligned. And then here I'll you know, just add that to SL scan aligned. Hit save and let that write out. and then we'll go back to reality capture for the final step. Okay, so we are back in reality capture. The final step is very easy. All you have to do is come here, click import model, go to that directory where the scan is. So we're looking for the structured light that's been aligned. Open that. The RC info file, this, I forgot to mention this is something you can export that kind of helps stuff to know where it is, but it's not that important. If you aligned it properly, it works fine. So I'm just gonna hit import. Okay, texture image is not square. So that is something that reality capture doesn't like, that I forgot about. So very simple fix. Literally all you have to do is go to the folder where your structured light scan is saved and just delete this image. It doesn't need that. So we'll do that again. Okay, and so like magic, this is the structured light scan from reality capture. So I'm gonna come here and click unwrap. This just makes sure that it's prepared for texturing. I think the texture button would unwrap it either way, but let's just to be double safe. So we're gonna hit the unwrap button and make sure, model 3, 2.5 million, this is the structured light. Hit unwrap. Yes. So this prepares it for the texturing. Okay, so the model is unwrapped. Now we can just hit texture, and this will project all of our cross-polarized images onto our structured light model. This is the final step. Okay, and that's it. So here we have our cross-polarized scan of the shoe with the geometry from the amazing Shining 3D Pro HD scanner. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to show you. I forgot how to do this. Solid, here we go. So here you can see that amazing geometry from the Pro HD. Let's see if I can turn off the grid view. I forget how to do all this stuff. Show grid. So now you can see how amazing the geometry is, incredibly detailed. And then when you turn the color on, you see how crazy that element of it is. And so that's the full workflow. I encourage you to experiment with this, try it for yourself. This is the way to get very high quality scans, very high quality assets. It's an effect, cross-polarization is an effect that you can use creatively to achieve very high quality representations of these materials and colors and surfaces. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a message or drop it in the comments, and I'll be available at the end for a Q&A. So thank you so much.